So, Ian, have you seen what our lovely Prime Minister has done in the UK again?
Have I seen? I put that tweet out earlier, and people were receptive to it. But I just got to say, Mr. Potato Head wants his ears back. Sorry. Let me share it with you. Let me see if I can share my screen, because I've got it up ready. Excuse me. Just to show you. Okay, share away. Oh, we'll come back to this one later. I'm going to tell you about all that in a second. But for now, look at this. Let me play this. Let me make sure it goes back. I've got the audio on, and then let's enjoy this lovely clip from our beautiful Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
AKA Mr. Potato Head.
I support you with the cost of living when I first became Prime Minister. We've already increased the support for an average household's energy bills to £1,500, thanks to our decision to tax the wartime profits of energy companies, and we're working day in and day out to halve inflation. We'll go even further. Millions of homes across the UK will receive a new cost of living payment. Eligible households don't need to apply because the money will be sent automatically. And this is just the first of 3 payments totaling £900. A big boost for those who need it most that will hopefully give you some peace of mind.
Wait, before we comment on that, can we just listen to the magpie laughing at him in the background? One sec.
Of living when I first became Prime Minister. We've already increased support for an average household's energy bills to £1,500.
You know what the you know what the appropriate reaction would be? Like the Mexican guy laughing, they're like, ah! The meme. Do you know which one?
Right. Yeah.
That would be the appropriate. Because when I just watched it back, I was thinking, I mean, he was talking about the sums of like energy relief and stuff. Well, it's not of a big help if like your energy bill is 3 times what it used to be, because you guys sort of messed up a lot of stuff, not just from a policy standpoint. If people are still in debt and like halving inflation, you caused inflation by printing too much money.
Inflation, well, reported inflation at like 10 point whatever it is %, and he's going to halve it. So is he going to halve it to what, 5? Is that the new standard now?
Mate, to be honest, when I was watching, so today I had quite a lot of deadlines I needed to hit, and one in particular I had to write about inflation. Again, funny enough, for that client, I stopped writing about inflation for months, and now they go like, oh, inflation is picking up again. And I sort of sat there, well, yeah, I told you. And then I had to like watch quickly what they said in the media, and a lot of them sort of sat there on Bloomberg TV and they went like, well, you know, now we'll have to deal with like 4% to 5% inflation instead of 2%. And I sat there thinking to myself, you know how ridiculous you sound.
It's like, how much theft do they think they can get away with? And that's what they're saying. It's basically, we've done all right with 2%. Maybe if we can increase it, we can ride on the back of the stuff that's going on over in Ukraine and stuff like that, and sort of use that as an excuse to raise the rates and increase inflation, because people will buy into that and they'll believe it and they won't really give a shit. Like,
I mean, in the central bank system, they have to raise rates to lower inflation. That is economy 101. But what I'm really fed up with is they sort of just changed the standard from stable 2%, like if money devalues 2% year on year, it's not stable in my opinion, but like I'll come to that later on why it is 2%, to now 5%, meaning in like possibly 10 years, your money has probably decreased by what, 42% at that point, like in crazy amounts. And the funny thing is, I actually did a bit of research. You know why we have 2% inflation rate as like a standard with central banks?
Go on. I think I know the general reason, but I've got a feeling you might know a bit more than me. Go on.
Okay, so a lot of like the central bankers these days, Mrs. Lagarde in Brussels, and I'm not swearing because we want to clip more shorts, I'll hold back, and Mr. Powell in America, and sort of all around in England and Japan as well, accepted that rate because apparently once in a lifetime ago, politicians in New Zealand determined that in a meeting, wouldn't it be amazing to have like 2% inflation back then? And this was like probably decades ago. And they should sort of just thrown the curveball out there, sort of like, hey, 2% would be great instead of, I think they had 8 or 9 at that point. And the economists working for the central bank in New Zealand, they sort of sat there and thought to themselves, well, 2% is actually not a bad number. Let's run the simulations. And that's all economists do. They come up with a thesis. They sound very convincing on their Twitter rants and in their books. And they really convince you of that being good.
Of course.
And after a while, they came back and said, 2% is perfect. We'll stick with this. And because one central bank accepted it, every central bank accepted it. Imagine that. They just said 2% is okay, out of nothing, thin air. Proving again
well, it's just
that
to show
fiat
you,
is backed by nothing.
It's like a whim and a prayer. How much can we actually get away with? What's the sweet spot that we can just fly under the bloody radar and people will just carry on while we just sort of dip in their pockets and take what they've worked hard for? And this Rishi Sunak guy, like the cheek
Potato
of him,
Head.
yeah, new nickname. The cheek of him, the gall of him. I promised you that we'll tackle the cost of living crisis. It was you that caused the cost of living crisis in the first place.
Because he was, for all of non-UK listeners or watchers, he was finance minister.
Yeah, the chancellor.
Well, exactly. He was like the finance minister for you Americans, and he was the chancellor in charge of the treasury back when like all of the COVID credits happened. And I mean, wasn't he also... I think he was not convicted, but wasn't there like an investigation into if he helped mates and stuff?
There's loads of investigations going on about these politicians, and none of it goes anywhere. I wonder why. And there's like this thing, is it led by donkeys? The people that put out all this information about the government and exposing them for their sort of shenanigans. And there was like a recent video come out the other day. I think it was yesterday about these. People in the cabinet, in the top file of the Conservative government, basically trying to get a second part-time job for many thousands of pounds for a consulting firm that was being set up as a fake.
Exactly, that doesn't exist. That's very important to know. It's been set up to trap them.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but it's amazing to watch it. But this guy, the cheek of him, I'm going to solve the cost of living crisis that he created by giving away free money and at the same time trying to halve inflation. How can you just generate money out of nowhere and halve inflation at the same time? It reeks of similar tones of the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes, where they pack everything in. And I think the audacity which comes up in these things, obviously we are enraged because we're saying, hang on a minute, you are responsible for causing inflation and, all of the other policy mistakes.
It reminds me of that HSBC advert with that puppet, about abusers. Like, come on, guys, you're the ones abusing us and you're telling us it's going to be okay and we'll look after you. How abusive is that? It's gaslighting 101. And people, I don't know, they're buying into it, Joel, and I'm getting annoyed about it.
But the crazy thing is, we just talked before we hit record off camera where I said, I've spoken to a friend of mine who's not like a banker, but he works in private equity. And when I told him about the CBDCs and I told him, listen, it will make commercial banks obsolete, ergo, like your job is in danger because he is dealing with banks on a daily basis. And he sort of went like, well, that's a system. What are you going to do? And this is exactly the issue we're facing, not just as Bitcoiners.
Is it complacency or people just beyond caring now? I don't know what it is, but...
I think it's always been there, but it's been like it's been brought into people's mind. Because if you think about it, look at it from an economical standpoint. Like, yes, they handed out free money during like the COVID stuff, but this has been going on way before that. Ever since 08, 09, with the zero interest rates, they were basically handing out money. I mean, I lived in Switzerland. We had negative interest rates for a couple of years straight. So if you had money in the bank, you had to pay the bank to keep your money there. On top of like the normal banking fees you got, which is absolutely astonishing. And this is just an environment where you nurture that like, money is free. I get this if I want to. And what I'm going to do, like, I can change anything. Yes, you can. There is this little thing called Bitcoin, and it gives you the possibility to opt out of these things. Not completely. There's still a long way to go. We still have to improve many things, but it is a first very important step to say no to these CBDCs and to not have total controllable money. Yeah.
And this clip about Rishi Sunak as well. He's like, oh, there's no need to sort of do any applications and stuff like that. Basically, we know who you are. We know the account numbers of the people that they feel that will benefit from this money that they haven't, voted for. They've just made this unilateral decision just to airdrop £900 into people's bank accounts if they deem them eligible for this free money, which doesn't actually exist. It's not actually free money because you're the ones. Well, everyone else is going to have to pay it back one day.
It is free money if you're 95 and possibly dying 2 days.
Yeah, when time is not on your hands, then maybe grab the opportunity of your £900 and spend it on one last thing that you're going to sort of
go out with a bang.
Go out with a bang, whatever you're going to do with it, take it. But, just bear in mind the fact that I'm going to be paying it back one day. But the whole, and it brings up for me KYC issues, surveillance capitalism. Then they know where you are all the time, all day, every day. As soon as you tap your card somewhere or your phone on GPay or whatever it may be, or your Oyster card, they know where you are, how much you paid, and the transaction and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, someone else can be using your card, but you've got a mobile phone in your pocket. Not a lot of people give out their own mobile phones to other people, so they can put all that data together and find out who you are and where you are at all times of the day. It's a surveillance state and it's a surveillance world. Look at China. Every angle of China, you've got a camera that recognises your face, tracking your every movement. And you've got the same in London. London's like the most CCTV'd city there is in all of Europe. You can't walk down the street without being captured by a CCTV camera.
Because I just wanted to ask you, Ian, as a former policeman, there for sure must be stories when you guys abused, I'm talking about the police officers, abused that system as well to track down a junkie or a drug dealer or whatever.
Yeah, investigating the crime. Okay, so with crime, with criminal offences that they've deemed what things people would do, and there's laws, there's criminal law and laws that they've deemed inappropriate for people to do, and if people do it, they've committed a criminal offence, right? But there's different grades of severity. You've got offences which are like the low-level type offences, the misdemeanors, if you like, and these offences are called summary offences. These are offences that, if it did ever get to court, you would probably get a maximum, which is unlikely, sentence of imprisonment of up to 6 months, or a fine up to a certain amount of money. So what
would that be like if I go into a shop and nick something off them? Or...
Yeah, so shoplifting, theft. It's a funny one. It's an either way offence, which basically it means that it can either be a low level offence or an indictable serious offence, depending on the type of theft it was and the way it was committed. Okay. So you've got different grades. You've got summary either way, which can go basically either minor or severe, or you've got the severe one, which is indictable offences. If you commit an indictable offence, which is like your rapes, your murders and all that kind of stuff, the serious offences, then pretty much the police can go around applying to all these different agencies, whether it be the bus operating company or the TfL or a private company, and put in warrants or requests for that footage, particularly if you've got an Oyster card, and we're trying to investigate your movements, and one of those ways is using an Oyster card. If you've got one registered to your name, KYC, and you're tapping away on your way to and from committing a crime, which would be a very stupid thing for you to do. You need to think ahead, right? We can track movements. We can triangulate mobile phone signals for people as well if we're actively looking for somebody. So that was the sort of stuff that people can do. If you're an agent, which I was, of the state, which I was, then these things are accessible to you. You go into Scotland Yard, right? I don't know, distributed them all over London now and other parts of the city, and they've got like these CCTV hubs. Mate, it's amazing. You walk in there, there's like screens everywhere, capturing all parts of London. They can zoom in, zoom out, all this, follow people, this facial recognition stuff.
And it's not the shitty camera quality like you see in the movies. It is super high quality. Like they can really zoom in, and possibly if you wear a shirt with like a certain logo, they can certainly take a picture of that logo and like hand it out to everyone.
Yeah, mate. And let me show you a clip from. I'm going to share the screen again. From our recent chat with Alex. There's a short I put out the other day,
which was an amazing episode, by the way.
Mate,
I think there was a lot of laughter.
Put the link in this episode because it was a great episode. It really was, and we're not just saying that just to plug our own podcast. It was a really fascinating chat.
Hashtag follow Rabbit Hole Stories at Rabbit Hole Tales on Twitter.
Go on, you say it. All right, can you see that on the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
If you just look at sort of how in the direction that society is moving in with surveillance in general, not just from intelligence agencies, but sort of at scale from pretty much every government and every corporation, just harvesting your data. I mean, your bank now, if you have one bank and one bank card and you use it everywhere, going around in London, tapping in and out of the tube, buying your coffee at the same Costa in the morning, they know exactly where you are pretty much at all times.
Yeah.
And if that's then in the hands of the wrong government, I mean, you can argue any government, but we have to be fair, some are worse than others. But if that gets, that kind of power goes into the wrong hands, that kind of absolute power, like you said, that could be a recipe for disaster. I mean, I don't want to be too negative, but it's definitely possible in the future. I mean,
so yeah.
And it leads in very nicely. It's always as so if we have rehearsed this, it leads in nicely to what the dangers are with CBDCs, because Alex was just explaining, and Ian beforehand as well, what is possible if you use an Oyster card, or if you just go out and about into the CCTV thing. They can track you from one end, but if they can then control the money, meaning they have a direct connection into your wallet, it's not into the bank that hosts your bank account, into your wallet, they can shut you off at that tube gate where you want to go in and, I don't know, leave London for whatever reason because you've committed a crime. They can already stop you there because you can't go through. They can block that. Or let's say, I think a lot of stuff is very politicized, especially in the finance world. We'll see it now with the Greenpeace action. Have you seen, by the way, they sort of crawled back. They did a tweet yet today where they said...
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, different topic.
Yeah, but that's a different topic. But yeah, they were trying to claw back the success of this Skull of Satoshi thing they put out that completely fucking bombed for them. And
I'll take it as a huge W.
Yeah. So anyway, we don't want to talk about these people for now.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about these idiots. But the funny thing is, let's say by 2028, when did they announce? 2025 or 2023, they announced 2030 they want to have the CBDCs ready in the UK or something like this, right?
Yeah, but that's subject to change, right? Because I remember we was talking to Decentra Sue. She had other ideas about when they're going to do it. Basically, God knows when they're going to release it. It's when they feel they can do it. The sooner they can do it, the better. So that means they're rushing it through. It's going to be clunky. It's not going to work properly because it's a government issued currency. So anyway, finish your point.
But I mean, let's say it comes out in 2025. That's in 2 years. We now know that the Bitcoin mining industry is growing at a 6 to apparently 8% rate. I read in a latest report this morning in accepting renewables. So that's 3 years. If we accept 6% as a lower end ratio per year, that's 18% more. We're currently at 5. I'm making up, it's between 52 and 60. So I'm just going with 55 as a middle ground there. Add the 18 to that would result us in 73% of the mining network would use renewable energies. In my book, that is a quite ecological and far advanced way of utilizing energy for a greater good. But if the central banks don't like this, and
it's a 14-year-old technology, it's been going for 14 years. We don't need it. You don't need a new thing to introduce on the back of it.
That's on all ends. Yeah. But if they don't like this, they go these Bitcoin companies where you buy your Bitcoin, or I don't know, maybe this Bitcoin company who employs 2,000 people, let's just flick the switch and turn it off. Imagine if we live on that kind of standard, which obviously no Bitcoin company would take in as CBDCs. But, just to make the point, if they don't like what you're doing, even though you might be trying to contribute something good, that could really go nasty, and not in a beautiful way. It really is dangerous to think that even though the fractional reserve banking system has been running currently, that CBDCs would be an improvement. But apparently we're just the weirdos shouting from the rooftops because normies don't see it.
Mate, how bad for the environment is fiat money?
Horrible.
How much energy is wasted leaving the lights on in the bank, running ATMs, printing money, whether it's digital
the
or
military?
physical, the military. Like, come on, guys, really, don't believe this nonsense from them.
But you know, it takes something between your ears to realize, oh shit, maybe, just maybe, the war machine that is the military is actually using, I don't know how many petabytes more energy than something with Bitcoin. And I pointed out to this graphic in our last rant here on YouTube.
About the energy thing.
Yes, there has never been a rich country who has been a low energy user.
Right.
All of the, and I'm defining rich as by like, I think it was by GDP in that graphic. Like Norway's all the way up there, the USA, India, China, they're all up there and they're consuming a lot of energy because it takes energy to live all of our daily lives. Otherwise we'll become cavemen again.
And this whole thing about, Bitcoin uses the same energy as a small country. Like, if you thought about the amount of energy that was used like 50, 100 years ago, like the amount of energy that was being used for any developing thing that was coming out, it was probably using the same equivalent amount of energy that they're referring to now. Like, we need continual energy, and like once that energy is harnessed, then we won't be using as much. Mate, it's a frustrating topic for me.
It's just the zeitgeist, because energy has become a swear word. That's the case with the whole Russia-Ukraine situation. And I feel also beforehand, like when all of the
energy is now a weapon.
the teenage phenomenals came up and taught us about how to live our lives. I think from that point forward, they sort of took on energy as like this bad thing. And I also have friends and even clients who, you know, are part of the energy industry, and they go like, for fuck, F's sake. I was holding me back, Ian. I didn't say it out. I will cut it that we don't say it. They told me if we have a prime example of transmitting energy through a renewable, ecological way, using it for something good, and I mean, Bitcoin, you can go about many different ways. If it's backed by energy, is it backed by proof of work, by math, whatever, it transforms something that you buy off someone into something tradable. It can be used as a store of value. It can be used as a currency.
Not wasted.
It's not wasted. It's being used all around the world. It unbanks people in Cuba, Iran, Afghanistan. It gives women a bank account. It gives them the possibility to send money internationally. It solves the
all the
remittance
things
problems.
that the central authorities say that they're fighting for.
Yes,
by the
it
way.
solves that already with like a pretty clunky interface. Let's be honest. Like the interface
clunky or
could
not,
be better,
like,
but it works.
It works.
So yeah, that's really the thing that enrages me. So Mr. Potato Head, instead of going on and calling everyone out for halving inflation, for fuck's sake, sit down, now I said the F word, and think about how you are going to solve this problem really.
Yeah.
I think it would be quite a lot of an understatement from Bitcoiner to say, just get off fractional reserve banking. I don't think this will happen anytime soon. The system is still quite sturdy and it can fight back. But you surely have to look at all of these metrics as a PM and think, shit, something is wrong with the current system.
The fiat money is like the boss at the end of a video game, isn't it? It's like the end boss.
Yeah.
Like it's going to take a lot of fighting back to complete this game. But we will.
And I mean, it leads into maybe the last talking point, because this morning I actually sent you this in a personal message where we saw Nick Carter, who in some shape or form, I would still categorize him as a Bitcoiner. I just think he went a bit off the rails, where he was in a podcast interview, and I've now seen or listened to the whole podcast in the morning because I wanted to find out if there was contact lacking. But you see a clip where he sort of goes like, every banking system in the world has ever run on fractional banking. We will not get rid of fractional reserve banking. Like all of these banks who are fully reserve, essentially they're crap and it doesn't work, which it has been taken out of context. There's a lot more context to the episode.
Let's watch the clip while we're here.
Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, because I can't see you now for whatever reason. So yeah, if we just play the clip.
Yeah. If there's one group in crypto that I have the biggest quarrel with, it's not even any specific coin interest group. It's actually with the like crypto Rothbardians that don't believe in quote unquote fractional reserve, and that believe in this mythical world of exclusively full reserve banking, which we've never had, by the way. There's no market derived banking regime where all of the banks have been full reserved. That has never occurred in history. If you eliminate all regulations on banking, you eliminate the central bank, you will have a fractional reserve system. We have plenty of historical evidence for this. Look at the free banking era in Scotland. That was a very successful era. There was no central bank. There was very limited bank regulation. There were very few bank failures. There was not a lot of financial instability. Inflation was low. Reserve ratios were on average 2 to 5%. So in a truly free market context and in successful historical epochs of banking, it's still fractional reserve. The full reserve people, they are indulging in basically fantasy we've never had. So it's not like we can go back to the glorious prior era of full reserve banking. We never had that. That's not something that the market actually gives us. It's just fundamentally more efficient to have fractional reserve.
Which is, again, the clip has been taken out of context. Let me
when I first saw the clip, just like that on its own, I was like, what is he on about? Like, but you said you've seen the whole video.
Yeah, because the whole video, basically, everything went around Choke Point 2.0, that like the government in the US especially is coming in, attacking, and like he was fully standing up for like Custodia and all of these fully backed banks. But the question leading up to it, I think, was something along the lines of, is it even worth fighting for? Again, that very laid back mentality, if fractional reserve banking is the future, will be the system in place. And then he went on about this rant that, yeah, technically speaking, fractional reserve banking has been around all the time, to which point he's right in the modern sense, everything after the birth of Jesus Christ. But
Who?
Before that, in Rome, they used to have fully reserved gold banks. And funny enough, the Roman Empire, from like a financial standpoint, went bust when they started clipping gold and silver and all of these things into
got debased,
fractional
right?
reserves. Right, yeah. They
And that's
literally
happened again and again and
reserved
again.
bank and gold. And because they just rehypothecated everything to the max, that's where you get these issues today. So on the one hand, whoever put the clip out, it has been taken out of some form of context. It makes him look bad, obviously, which is quite celebrated in some Bitcoin circles. But still, it's a prime example of showing, just because everything has been running on this system, you don't need to continue this way. Why don't we give the free market a choice? You either go fractional reserve or fully banked, or we now have this thing again called Bitcoin. And if people need an escape, and if there is a way, they will use that escape. Christine Lagarde said it herself. So what I don't understand is, he does get Bitcoin. Like, Nick Carter is not an idiot. I know he goes about this rant about he eventually turned into the crypto bro. But he still stands up for Bitcoin when it matters, as you've seen in the White House report about mining and such. What I fail to understand is, like, why does he make that statement? Because at the end of the day, yes, it is the easier route to say it has ever run on this system. And this has been highly profitable for banks. Let's not ignore that fact. A bank that is fully reserved a la Custodia, I argue, has a harder time finding other commercial banking partners than obviously a fully fractional reserved bank. But now that they will introduce CBDCs, commercial banks will become obsolete. So what are they going to do? Still stick to fractional reserve banking? I don't think so, personally.
No, I mean, like I said, Nick Carter he's a controversial figure in the Bitcoin space, and I think that was mainly as a result of the whole Bitcoin maximalism religion statement that he made. Was that last year now?
I think it was in June last year, and he sort of went along the lines that not every Bitcoin maxi, but like the toxic ones, and that it is like a religion, and it was quite a lengthy interview, I think, at one of the conferences. Yeah. And it completely backfired, because then a lot of these toxic maxis went out and saw, oh, this guy is running a venture capital fund, and he has invested into shitcoin projects, which at the end of the day, come on, guys, at one point, I think we all have to make a living.
Like,
exactly.
You can make judgments about me. You can make judgments about Joel. Like, I am an individual. Joel's an individual. I can make my fucking choices. Yes, I get Bitcoin. I'm into Bitcoin and stuff.
You said a swear word.
Sorry, fucking hell. I mean, shit. I mean,
2 times. We're even now.
We're even. Oh shit. Now listen.
Now you're leading.
Can't help it, mate. I'm British. Like, come on.
It just comes out.
Yeah. Mate, I was listening back to myself the other day, and I was like, "Oh my god, like I sound so British." Twitter, I keep saying, but anyway, yeah, Nick Carter. Yeah, he's an odd guy. He's an odd guy, though, isn't he? Bottle of water. He's a strange guy. He's very intelligent. He knows his stuff. He clearly understands Bitcoin. But yeah, he tends to. I don't know. Is he trying to sort of be the counter argument in Bitcoin? You know,
it almost feels like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think there's room for that. Bitcoin's for everyone. We need. We keep saying it here on the podcast. We need critical thinkers. We need critical discussions, and Nick Carter certainly provides that in abundance.
And you know, the whole argument by the toxic Bitcoin maxis, I mean, at the forefront, they were sort of the most known ones. And I sort of went, well, a lot of them also had their own shitcoins back in the days. Some of them even invested into like huge NFT companies or shilled whatever shitcoin before. And like, you know, not everyone has the possibility to work for a Bitcoin only company or who has Bitcoin investors in the back of them. Some have to make a living wage. And I personally respect the stacker who has 2 kids, has to work a couple of jobs to get through, and who still manages to stack sats, maybe not in the huge amount others do, way more than the guy who may have sold his company, got rich, and just happened to have the opportunity and buy him. Both of them end up in Bitcoin. My personal respect goes out to the guy willing to put in the work to stack and to not have right place, right
to
time.
those people in regions of the world where stacking Bitcoin is difficult because they're, you know, oppressed and suffer, and suffering high inflation. So, you know, my respect goes out to those people as well.
Yeah, and you know, I know someone will come out in the comments saying like, "Oh, but you know, the guy who sold the company also did hard
funny,
work."
the comments,
yes,
isn't it?
yes, but at the end of the day, he's now there with a cash load of money, and he has the opportunity. It's good that he realizes, oh, I can go into Bitcoin, and this is going to change the world, whatever. But the guy who is still struggling in his everyday life, you know. Everyone has worries these days. If they still manage to get through that and stack that, I think that has, on the impression scale, way more impression on me than someone who just happens to have the money for possible previous work he's done or she has done. And I think it shows a bit with Nick. Like, I actually sent out an invite. I would love to have him on the podcast because I think it's important to have these kind of discussions. And it almost felt a bit this way that because he works in venture capital, and this is a hard business as well. Like, you have rich people telling you what to invest their money in, which is not always fun because that maybe goes against your beliefs as well. But you have to do it, otherwise you're also out of a job. But I think it's what you said. He may appear a bit weird because he has that notion of, I do actually know what I'm talking about, what he mostly does. And this often turns into a very weird thing where they go, I know sort of everything. I don't think he's a know-it-all. He's very knowledgeable about a lot of stuff. But like that example, it literally took me half an hour because I still remember that there was something in the Roman Empire. I found this one. And for the reference he made about Scotland, most of these banks did not have 2 to 5%, whatever he said, but like 5 to 10%. So the number was even more. I know I took up the time and Googled it and stuff. But just to say, they had 10%. If they had 10% reserves, that's 10% more than what they have today. Because they have the ability to have 0 reserves these days and bank in that fractional reserve banking.
Right. Yeah. It'd be great to have him on.
Yeah, definitely. So Nick, if you for some reason get a hold of this video, please respond to my email.
And if you get £900 from the UK government, then yeah, enjoy it. Maybe
I would have said stack sats. But...
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I was just about to say that, but I was like, I don't want to give out financial advice. So this is definitely not financial advice. If I was getting £900 off the government, I would strongly consider personally to maybe buy some Bitcoin with it.
I mean, first it's important to stay humble when you get these 900, and then stacking sats is just inevitable.
Yeah. On that note, should we finish up here?
Yeah, I think that's a good end to the episode.
See you later, guys.
See ya.